In this video, we're going to format our measure numbers. So go to Document, Edit Measure Number Regions. The first thing we want to do is uncheck this Show on Start of Staff System option. We don't need that for this. Now what we want to do is go down here. We want to tell Finale to show a measure number for every single measure in the full score. So we're going to click on that. Then we're going to click on the enclosure, and what that's going to do is put a rectangle around each and every measure number in the full score. Now this is for a producer to look at or for a conductor to look at. So the measure numbers need to be bigger. We want to do that in Set Font, and we want to change the size to 24. Then we want to un-italicize it. In other words, we want to uncheck this box and hit OK. The next thing we need to do is we want to make sure that these measure numbers are at the bottom center of every single measure on the page. So to do that, we're going to click on Position. And we want the alignment to be center. That will automatically make our justification center. After that, we want to change the vertical positioning, and we want to make that a negative number. So type negative 1.4. And if I click in this box that says horizontal, it will automatically update and show us what that would look like. That actually looks good. The reason we put it so far down is because if we have dynamics here, or if we have something like a crescendo or a decrescendo, well, we need the room so that the measure numbers don't collide with whatever is at the bottom of the measure, especially if we're using ledger lines. So hit OK. Now all of this looks pretty good for our full score. But what about our parts? Well, we want our parts to actually have a different measure number format. So to do that, I clicked on linked parts. I clicked on linked parts. And we want to uncheck use score settings because we want the measure number formatting to be different. Now what we're going to do is, indeed, we are going to add another enclosure. In other words, we're going to say, again, put the rectangle around each and every measure number. And we're going to change the font here, but it's not going to be 24. It doesn't need to be that big for a part score. We're going to make it 16, and we're going to uncheck the italic option. Then we're going to go into Position. Now, there's going to be a treble clef here for the majority of our part scores. And this treble clef will collide with the bottom of this rectangle. We don't want that. So in order to compensate for that, we want to change the vertical distance from staff to 0.3. Now what that is going to do is that's going to be a nice safe distance, and it's not going to collide with the treble clef. So I'll hit OK. So now what I want to do is I want to show measure numbers on multi-measure rests, and I want to have a range, and we'll cover what that looks like a little more towards the end. But let's actually change the font size here. Let's change this to size 12. And you might think that that's not the same size as we made this over here, and that's correct, but it should be a different size. Then uncheck italic and hit OK. Now all of this looks really good. So what we're going to do is hit OK one more time. And that's exactly what we want, believe it or not. Now we do have a collision here between the copyright and these measure numbers. So we'll click on the Page Layout tool. We're going to click here on this box and drag it down. And I'm actually holding Shift while I do that to make sure I don't change the distance. And now I'm going to drag up. And one thing you want to make sure of when you drag up is that you don't drag up and over to the left. See how weird that looks? I made sure that when I dragged up, it was still as far right as I could get it. But what I did is I dragged this whole system up so that way it wouldn't collide with the copyright. The final thing we need to do in our measure number formatting here is we need to go to Document Options. This is the hotkey for it here, but I'm just clicking on the window and, I'm clicking on the navigation bar and pulling it up that way for anyone who doesn't have the hotkey memorized. So for document options, you want to click all the way down where it says multi-measure rests. And what we want to do is we want to go to where it says number adjustment vertical. We want that number to be a 0.2. And we're going to hit apply and OK. The reason we did that is because, well, I'll show you. Now let's go ahead, and what we're going to do is take a look at what's called a linked part. I went to edit part and I went to voice here. Okay. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a multi-measure rests. Let's say I'm going to create one just from measures 4 to 7, just temporarily. I'm going to hit create. Okay. See, there's our range. So I have a 4-bar multi-measure rest between measures 4 and 7. And this 4 is a nice distance from the top of the staff. If we didn't change the number in document options that we changed, then what would happen is this 4 would be really close against that top staff line. So that's why we did everything that we did. Now, if you look, these measure numbers, they are a different format than these measure numbers in the sense that they're not the same size and in the sense that they're in the top left corner as opposed to the bottom center. So this is what we want. We want a nice format for our full score measure numbers, and we want a nice format for our part score measure numbers. That's going to go ahead and bring this video to a close. Don't miss out on the next. We'll be talking more about getting our arrangement into this full score that we've created.